Hi. In this episode, I will go through the events in the fall semester of 1975. First and foremost of all, with a lot of struggle and trouble, I got my study leave extended for another year, that is calendar year 1976. Another thing that happened in the fall of 1975 was I made a presentation of my master's thesis before the examination committee composed of Professor Merriam, Professor Hand, Professor Muller, Professor Brower, and Professor Boone. And this committee will listen to my presentation or any student's master's thesis presentation for 30 minutes. And the students of the department will be the audience. And whoever else would desirous of watching the presentation can also join. And then after the 20 to 30 minutes of presentation, then of course the faculty, the examining committee will ask questions about clarifications, comments, observations, etc. And because all these members of the committee had already read the final version of the master's thesis. And then the students on the floor are also free to ask doubts, clarifications, comments, as well as questions. And then the ritual goes through excusing of the chairman of the committee will excuse the student audience, and then it is a closed door session where the interrogation is kind of tough. In other words, they will bluntly and plainly tell you what are the holes in your research and whether they are serious or mild. And also they will ask you to, if you are continuing for a PhD, to take care of all those small mistakes in your way of presentation, the students' style of presentation, the kind of style the student will keep while answering the questions or responding to the comments or observations by the faculty. So that will take another 30 to 40 minutes, and all the teachers all the members of the committee, that is the 5 members, each one will ask or make comments in camera. In other words, in the absence of the student audience. So it's actually an excellent experience in the sense that you are not sure whether your thesis will be accepted or not. So it is an experience, it is a tense moment, and finally, even the candidate is excused. I was asked to go out, and then after 5 minutes, I was called in. And my supervisor and the chairman of the committee, Professor Miriam, told me that, Vic, we have examined you, and we have come to the conclusion that you can be now conferred with a master's degree in geology of the Syracuse University. Congratulations. When this is told, you're bloated, you're elated, you're extremely happy, and you thank everybody you know and you don't know. That is what the culmination is. So that ritual, I would say that practice, that's part of that, the things a student has to complete to earn a master's degree, that is over. But already I had a paper published in the in a book edited by Merriam. That is a different story. That does not stand in the way of what is called, the final decision of the committee, because committee can still find, holes in your work. Well, that so far so good. The next thing I had to do was I had to appear for what is called a pre-PhD exam. Once you complete the pre-PhD exam, you are declared as a PhD candidate. Until then, you are declared as a PhD a PhD student. That is what is written in the ID card. Once you get this exam, pre-PhD exam over, then the what is called the ID card department of the university will redesignate in your ID card as a PhD candidate. Well, it has a lot of privileges, regarding library use, the time you spend in the department, so on and so forth. Then next mission I told was to do the pre-PhD exam, and I went and met Dr. Hand the following week and said that, sir, I will want to take my pre-PhD exam as soon as possible. Then Bryce Hand said, anyway, this is this end of the fall semester. Why don't you do it in the month of January 1976? And yes, something about the pre-PhD exam is very important. That you first of all you will have to pass very decently in all the exams questions handed down by every faculty in the department. The pre-PhD exam focuses not especially about the PhD thesis area, but the entire spectrum of the geological sciences. That is the toughest part. In other words, you will have to study hard from A to Z of the various branches of geoscience. And we have something like 11 professors in the university. And if you are your time is bad, all the 11 will give you a question each. And you can answer the question in 30 minutes to 60 minutes of duration. And that means you will have to sit in the written exam room, which is actually the faculty office, faculty council meeting office. And you can take not all the time in the world, but the so-called 11 hours or 12 hours, depending on the number of papers, questions you have to answer. And the lucky guys will get a chance where questions some of the faculty members will not get involved in this examination process by giving a question. So what you do, you have to do is you have to be reading the entire textbooks and journals. Probably that is most important, and learn by heart, I would say. In other words, that is the hardest time ever I had during my PhD program. In other words, I couldn't sleep more than 3 hours every day, each day. And the spring break, not the spring break, the fall break between fall and spring semester was very tough, because I had withdrawn entirely and totally from my regular routine. I definitely did go to Johnson City so that Geeta is comfortable there. But I had been spending a lot of time, and this examination preparation started in spite of my uncertainty about the leave, right from the fall of 1975, no doubt about it. And I could recall even the page number of a certain diagram or a certain description. That is the way I was prepared. And generally what happens is, people reduce 5 or 10 pounds of weight when they are preparing for the exam. because it is the hardest part of your PhD program. It is not, research is also a hardest part, and equally harder is the pre-PhD exam. In other words, you have to answer all the questions. This will be followed by the faculty will evaluate the question, award marks, and if you earn a grade which is less than B, then you are in trouble. That particular professor will recommend to you to take the exam again. So, and also locally in America, most of the cases, some of the supervising teachers will state in the letter of recommendation when you seek a job that such and such this particular person did not clear the pre-PhD examination in one go. That is also not a positive recommendation, and could affect your placement in the job field. Anyway, so January 2nd week after the registration was my turn to take the written exam. I had about 9 professors giving me questions. 2 persons, in other words, Professor Brower, Professor Nye, gave questions each in paleontology. Then Dr. Merriam, Dr. Hand, Dr. Muller, Dr. Boone, and Dr. Devard, and Walter Dean. All of them gave 1 question each. And I sat in the office, where on a Wednesday morning at 8 o'clock it all began. And the secretary gave me several, envelopes with the questions stuffed in it. And in other words, there is no mixing of questions, and you have to give the answers in what is called the Blue Book. Blue Book exam, Blue Book is very common in the United States those days, when you have to write all the answers with the hand and pencil. And they don't insist that you have to answer with the pen, write the answers with pen only, because suppose you want to make some correction, you can erase whatever you wrote with the pencil and then correctly write it down. So I had something like 9 blue books. There is no limit on the number of blue books you could use for the exam, but you have to properly identify, etc. So I sat in the office in that small room around a table where I started answering the questions. And by about 6 o'clock or 6, I was asked to return stop my writing and return the blue book or books to the secretary. And because the secretary will wait there until the end of the session of the exam, the office secretary. There are 2 secretaries, one of them will wait. So I turned it in, and then it was a great relief, except that as far as the question by Professor James Brower was concerned, I was not very happy about my answering, because he is a paleontologist. He sat across me, my office in the same floor, and we used to cross every day at least half a dozen times, saying hi, like that. And but I could not do well there. Anyway, in the following week, Monday, I got feedback, and except Professor Brower, who had put up a special face and attitude toward me. And he will say hi, I will say hi, but not with a tight face. Muscles are very tight in his face. And on the Monday evening, he called me in, and Vic, I want to talk to you. I went in, and then he told me, I have not passed you in your written answer. It is not to my satisfaction. I said, I'm sorry, sir. Then I asked, sir, what is the recourse? Well, you have 2 options. One, you can retake the test, or I will cover that portion also during the Viva OC that will follow. I opted for the latter. So, but I felt so bad that I couldn't do this. And there's one thing, you will not be required to write a letter or recommendation for me for a job in the United States anyway. So the following week on a Thursday afternoon, the oral examination started at 2 o'clock or 2 p.m. And it was actually what is like an inquisition. No, that is the word Bravo uses. All the faculty, who gave me questions, all the 9, they came and sat behind a long desk. And I was the only one in that big hall, a large classroom. And everyone started asking questions, one after the other. And there was one good thing about, a surprise, was that Bravo, after that, conversation, told me that I am asking Nai. Nai is also a paleontologist in the department to pose questions to cover for the Professor Brower, because Brower had to go for some conference down to New York City, so he won't be available. That was a big relief. And then, the question and answer session started. Everyone was, so there were only 8 people, not 9. And the session went on for one round. Every professor taking 20 minutes, 15 minutes like that. And then the chairman, Professor Mariam, asked, gentlemen, if you are ready for another round, we will ask our candidate to get ready for the answers. Well, then some of the professors will not ask questions, They will say, no, I'm not opting for a second round. But Professor Naive, who is a paleontologist, said, now I am asking Vic, examining Vic for on behalf of James Brower. So then he asked questions on paleontology, paleoecology, so on and so forth. And finally, he told, yes, that's it. Then he looked over to Professor Mariam, the chairman. Chairman said, Vic, we are excusing you. You can come back after 5 minutes. I will call you back. So I just went out. It was around, 5:15. It's a long session. I was, I can stand or I can sit. Either way, I can face the questions. So I was doing partly standing and partly taking a seat. And then after 5 minutes, Dr. Marian came out and called me in, hailed me in to the classroom. Well, when I went in, the first question was from chairman, how did you feel after the exam? I said, sir, I feel good in the sense, 2 reasons. One, it is over. Number 2, I think I did fairly well. Well, it is not over. That was the reply by Miriam, because you will have to face the similar committee in your PhD presentation. So this is only a pre-PhD exam. So the second part of your comment, Professor Mariam said, well, we are happy that you handled all the questions correctly and you know how to express yourself. And we are proud of the fact that you will be a person who will uphold the merit and status of the Syracuse University as a doctoral student, as a doctoral degree holder of the Syracuse University in future in all your pursuits. Then he looked around his friends in the committee and said, we again congratulate you and suggest that you very quickly finish up your PhD thesis, because the problem you had with your employer. So finish up the thesis and target a date for submission and presentation somewhere along October 1976. And everyone else also greeted me with the best wishes. And I was also elated because a big burden is over. I am ready to, and from next day onwards, I am a PhD candidate and not a graduate student anymore. That was what happened during that session in the January of 1976.